Okay, consider this common scenario, something, well, most of us have probably run into. You invest in some cutting-edge product or service. It seems brilliant, feature-rich, promises the world, but then you hit a snag. And there's just no clear guidance, no reliable way to figure things out. Or maybe the flip side. You're part of a great team, building incredible stuff, but when someone key leaves, poof, all their knowledge walks out the door because, well, nothing was really written down. Both situations are just incredibly frustrating, right? Leaving customers and even internal teams kind of stuck. So the question is, how do we dodge these extremes? How do we find that real balance? It's exactly what we're diving into today on the deep dive. The topic is Agile documentation, balance, value, and AI enhancement. Now, if you're familiar with Agile's core ideas, you know it really emphasizes adaptability, delivering value fast. Today, we're zeroing in on one of its main pillars, the second value. It's often summed up as working products and services over comprehensive documentation. Sounds straightforward, but honestly, it's this simplicity that leads to some pretty big misunderstandings. It can cause more problems than it solves, sometimes.
That's precisely it, yeah. Our mission today, it isn't about saying, hey, just ditch all documentation. And it's definitely not about drowning your teams in, endless, useless paperwork either. It's really about finding that sweet spot where functional solutions for your customers, that's the top priority. And documentation, well, it acts as a critical, really efficient support system. We'll dig into what just enough documentation actually means, and crucially, how new tools, especially AI, are just fundamentally changing the game here, making that balance, well, not just possible, but maybe even surprisingly easy.
Okay, so let's unpack this common misunderstanding. Agile second value. It really is this huge one. You've got one camp, right? Teams who sort of twist it into a license to skip documentation altogether. Their thinking is like, oh, we're Agile. We just build and ship. No time for docs.
Yeah.
And this often comes from just, well, skimming the value, right? Focusing only on the over-comprehensive documentation bit. They forget the implied need for some documentation. It's like throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Exactly.
And then future teams or even customers are left totally clueless.
And then on the complete opposite side, you see teams or maybe individuals who, because they fear that lack of knowledge, they just keep churning out mountains of exhaustive docs. It's almost like a waterfall approach hiding inside an agile sprint,
Right.
which isn't just inefficient, it totally misses the point of agile, which is delivering value step by step, adaptively. The real intent, it's pretty simple actually. Your customers, first and foremost, want solutions that just work. Period. That's the core value. But for the long haul, for supporting and sustaining those solutions, whether it's software, a service process, even a physical product, you absolutely need documentation. The key is it has to be just enough. It needs to be accurate, easy to find, and describe only the really critical stuff. Precision matters. The goal isn't like picking one or the other. It's knowing exactly what to document, when to do it, and how much is genuinely needed to keep delivering value.
I kind of like to think of documentation as the structural integrity of your product or service.
Yeah.
Without it, when things inevitably break or need changing, troubleshooting isn't just guesswork. It's like spelunking in the dark. Maintenance goes from being predictable to being, frankly, high-risk gambling. And passing on that crucial team knowledge, it becomes painfully slow, often incomplete. It puts your whole operation at risk. Just imagine trying to update some complex old system. The original architect's long gone, and there's not a single diagram, not one decision log. That's the no-docs nightmare scenario.
Absolutely. And like you said, the other extreme, spending tons of time on perfect, exhaustive documentation that also has major downsides in an agile world focused on product and service management. It delays getting the actual working solution out there. It drains your team's valuable time and energy. And honestly, a lot of effort gets wasted.
Why is that?
Well, because in agile, things change. Priorities shift, features evolve. What looked like perfect documentation yesterday might be totally obsolete by the time you deploy. We've all seen them, right? Those beautiful 20-page specs describing a feature that never actually got built.
Or changed so much, the doc is now misleading.
Yeah, exactly. That kind of over-documentation creates unnecessary work in progress, and it pulls focus away from actually delivering value.
Okay, so given these pretty big risks, outdated docs or no docs at all, how do we actually do this? How do we build documentation effectively right alongside the work without grinding everything to a halt.
Right. This is where things get practical and where AI offers some really exciting possibilities. But let's first talk about the how. How do you strike that balance? It really starts by treating documentation not as some task you tack on at the end or, farm out to someone else. It has to be an integral part of your Agile iteration, a deliverable, just like the feature itself. This means capturing the core details while you're implementing. When the knowledge is fresh, it's accurate, it's right there. If you put it off, if you wait for later, well, later often means never. Or it becomes this low priority chore that always gets bumped. Knowledge fades fast. Trying to piece it together weeks or months down the line, it's inefficient and you're bound to make mistakes.
And that deferral, or having it misaligned, leads to a whole mess of risks, doesn't it? Like, imagine you're building that cool gadget we mentioned earlier. If you write the user manual before engineering even starts,
Oh, yeah.
or if you have a separate tech writing team working in isolation, you're pretty much guaranteed to have inaccuracies. You might end up describing features that got cut or functionality that changed completely, but the docs never caught up.
It's that classic waterfall trap, isn't it? Documentation as the static thing, produced separately from the actual evolving product.
Exactly. And these gaps, they create mismatched expectations for customers, frustrated support teams. It all leads to costly delays and rework down the line. It just makes so much more sense to build the documentation with the implementation, letting it adapt as the product itself evolves.
Okay, now here's where it gets really interesting. The role of AI. As you document alongside implementation, capturing notes, refining code, discussing designs, you can actually use AI to help create documentation that's accurate, consistent, and tailored to the context. Modern AI tools are getting incredibly good at processing complex info.
Oh, so?
Well, they can quickly summarize meeting notes, for example, or automatically generate technical diagrams just from looking at your software architecture or system flows. They can even draft user guides based on your internal notes. Think of it like having a super fast, tireless assistant who's great at organizing information.
Wow, that's genuinely powerful, right?
Yeah.
Imagine finishing a discussion about a new service feature, feeding your notes into an AI, and bam, it drafts a concise summary for your internal wiki, or maybe even an initial bullet list for a customer FAQ.
Exactly.
Or for developers, maybe the AI generates a system flow diagram just by analyzing the code. That saves an incredible amount of time, obviously. But more than that, it helps ensure the documentation actually grows with the product or service, keeps it current, relevant, almost in real time.
It's documentation that breathes.
Yeah, documentation that breathes with your product. I like that.
And this really enables a big shift in how teams work. Instead of that tedious, time-sucking process of creating docs from scratch.
Which nobody really enjoys.
Right. Teams can shift to mostly reviewing and refining what the AI generates. And that frees up so much team capacity, time and energy that can go right back into building, improving the actual solution, making sure the team stays laser-focused on delivering maximum value to customers. It's not about replacing people. It's about augmenting them, offloading the repetitive stuff.
Okay, but hang on. Practical challenge time. What if your team members, the folks actually doing the product development or service delivery, what if they aren't, professional writers?
Right.
Because let's be real, not everyone on an implementation team is a natural wordsmith or tech author.
True.
And forcing them to be can just slow things right down.
That's a really common, very valid concern, and thankfully there's a pretty robust, practical way around it. First off, the focus always needs to be on creating only the essential documentation. Ask yourselves, what were the key decisions made here? What are the absolute critical implementation details for this specific piece? What support info must be captured for later, for maintenance or customer success? So for like a new API endpoint, essential might just be a clear purpose statement, a bullet list of key parameters, expected responses.
Right, not War and Peace.
Exactly. It's not a 50-page design document detailing every edge case, which will be outdated next week anyway. Second, use lightweight formats. Think bullet points. Simple diagrams, brief, clear notes, maybe right in your collaboration tool or a team wiki. Think of it like building a skeleton. It captures the core facts. You can always flesh it out later if needed, maybe by a dedicated writer or even another AI pass. Third, and this is super important, let the implementation teams own this initial capture.
Why them specifically?
Because they're closest to the work, they have the accurate, fresh details that someone else might miss or misunderstand. Their direct, even raw input is gold. And finally, yeah, absolutely leverage AI here. Use those content generators to automate parts of it, make things clearer, maybe adapt the tone for different audiences, even spot gaps you might have missed.
So the real beauty here is this balanced approach creates just enough documentation to actually support the product. And there's always room to enhance it later if you really need to, but without getting bogged down up front.
Precisely.
It fits perfectly with that agile idea of iterative delivery, continuous value.
Exactly. And the benefits of documenting as you build, they actually go way beyond just helping with support after release or onboarding new people. Documenting what you're building while you're building it, it acts like a real-time validation check. It's your earliest warning system.
How so?
Well, it forces clarity. It often reveals hidden issues or assumptions right there during implementation. You catch problems much earlier. I remember a team once, they realized mid-sprint, just by documenting an architectural decision, that it was actually going to create a huge bottleneck later on. Because they documented as they built, they caught it, they redesigned, and they saved themselves weeks of pain down the road. It's like having a mini crystal ball.
That's a great example.
And when you bring AI into this process, you just amplify those benefits. Teams can produce much more robust, high-quality documentation while still staying totally focused on delivering the actual product value.
That's incredibly powerful. But
Yeah.
there's a crucial warning with AI, right? And this seems really important to get right. You have to give it very clear instructions on how much documentation to generate,
Yes.
the scope.
Absolutely critical.
Because without clear boundaries, you can just end up with this massive dump of AI-generated text that nobody has time to even look at, let alone manage. And that completely defeats the whole point of aiming for concise, valuable, useful documentation. The AI is a tool. You have to guide it.
Precisely. So to wrap this up, let's maybe distill it into 4 key principles for getting that documentation balance right in an agile product or service management context.
Yeah.
First, always prioritize working solutions. That's what customers ultimately pay for and care about. A flawless manual for a broken product is useless.
Right.
Second, integrate documentation into your iterations. Don't push it off till the end. Don't outsource it to a completely separate team that's out of the loop. It's part of the work. Third, capture the essentials during implementation. Focus on valuable, practical stuff that supports the product's function and maintenance. Forget perfection, aim for practical.
Just enough.
Just enough. And fourth, leverage AI to assist with documentation. Use it as you go to create right-sized, tailored docs for whatever you need, internal knowledge, external customer help, whatever.
And by applying these 4 principles, you really can avoid those frustrating extremes we started with. Either having zero documentation and leaving everyone lost, or drowning in piles of comprehensive but often useless or outdated paperwork.
Exactly.
Instead, your customers get reliable solutions that actually work for them, and your team keeps that vital knowledge needed to support and improve things long term. It really is about empowering your teams and delighting your customers, all through smarter, more strategic documentation. Wow, what a journey this deep dive has been. We've really, I think, untangled a pretty common knot around Agile and documentation and explored some genuinely practical, even future-facing ways to handle knowledge effectively.
Yeah, and it raises, I think, an important question for you, our listener, to sort of chew on. How might the continuous evolution of AI fundamentally reshape what we even mean by comprehensive documentation in the coming years? Will it become less about static files and pages and more about, say, dynamic AI-driven insights that adapt in real time based on the product state or even a user-specific question? Food for thought.
That's definitely something to think about deeply, and maybe a direct challenge for you right now. Take a moment to assess how your own team currently handles documentation. Are you striking that right balance? Or you may be leaning too far one way or the other. Have you considered, or perhaps even tried, using AI tools to help with your documentation process? We genuinely love to hear about your experiences. And of course, if you want to dive even deeper, maybe see the original source material that sparked today's discussion. You can find a direct link to the video right there in our description. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.